Hello, everybody. This is the Chocolate News Podcast, and this week's podcast is sponsored by the Ohio Lottery. Keep it fun, Ohio. Play responsibly. I'm your co-host, John Alexander Reese.
And I'm your co-host, Andria Carter.
And if you didn't know, the Cincinnati Herald has been around since 1955 and is the leading African American owned newspaper in the greater Cincinnati area and northern Kentucky area. So, how's it going, Andrea?
It's going great, John. I mean, it is fantastic. It is like the second day of spring.
Yes, thank
The
goodness.
that and I mean it's basically my sinuses are not having a happy day. Um Trust me, I have to make sure that I have my Claritin with me because my sinuses just started draining heavily and everything. I was like, oh, the pollen's coming back. Oh my God. But you see the leaves budding on the trees and in the bushes. The grass is growing. Where I live, the facility manager was complaining about how tall the grass was getting. And I looked at it, I was like, really? It's getting tall, but he's a stickler. He doesn't want the grass to go only so high. So all I have to say, spring is here. The birds will be chirping soon. We'll have, that nice, warm, cool weather esque with rain. So at least we won't have to worry about snow flurries. But again, until after April 1st, it's still March. So we'll
Yes.
have to see what it is. But I'm happy it's spring. So,
Yes, me too. Me too. So, Andrea, what is the chocolate news of the week?
well, the chocolate news this week is a very interesting mix of sad, good, and I can't believe this is happening. First off, I'm going to start off. I don't think a lot of people think about, the chocolate news. We are a segment of the Cincinnati Herald, which is a Black owned newspaper and which is a Black newspaper. We serve the Black constituency of the greater Cincinnati area. And the state of the Black press, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, it was National Black Press Week last week. And the Black press has been undergoing a severe change. They've had to come into the 21st century. A lot of the mom pop newspapers who've been survived on the way it's been done for hundreds of years can't any longer. They have to change with the times to survive so we can continue to be a spokesperson for the Black community or we'll die. Now, we've lost a number of Black newspapers, media companies already due to COVID and changes in the industry. And I would say going forward within the next 5-10 years, we'll see whether or not we have a strong Black press or not. And that's just meaning adapting to what's new, what's happening, how people are reading their news, getting their news. There are so many websites out there that are segmented on the life of the Black community. For us, we're trying to meet our readers where they are, whether it's in a regular newspaper, on our website, and our social media platforms, and now with Chocolate News Podcast and with our newsletter. As we change digitally, we'll be able to meet people more and more where they are in that space in the digital virtual world. And Ben Chavis spoke about that. He spoke about how we're working hard. The Black press is working hard to meet their readers and also serve them not just on a local level, but also on a national level on their perspective on various issues that are hitting us in a way that has not been seen since before the civil rights movement. So many people are fearful of Black people being in charge or people of color being in charge. They want to change history. They want to erase it. They want to just say, no, 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 you can't do it. They don't want to talk about diversity. And the Black press is being credited for pushing America forward and fighting for democracy, fighting for our rights, fighting for freedom of the press, fighting for freedom of speech, fighting for the right to vote. And at this event, Ben Chavis spoke about that. Congressman Ben Thompson, who led the committee on investigating January 6th, spoke about how that the pressure to move the investigation forward did not come from mainstream media, but it came from the Black press. How we were concerned, just like everybody else, on how it was affecting us, what that meant, because we know the Black community knew if those were Black people running on the Capitol, we would have been in jail, under the jail, or shot dead.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that, only a few people got injured but there are a lot of people who are being convicted on what they did on January 6th says a lot. And that was behind the scenes understanding of what was going on. That was motivating Ben Thompson to lead that investigation and get the truth out there as best as possible. In the growing digital age, our voices, even though segmented, still need what we can offer. Now, I know people don't think of us all the time covering certain news segments, but we're seeing that we're meeting our readership on social media. We're meeting our readership on our podcast right now, and going from there. So that's the state of the Black press. I would say thank you for your support. Continue to come to us, hear our viewpoint and our opinion. And if there's a subject that we're not covering, please let us know. Our information is on our website. And, we're interested in what you're interested in. And just, speak up, speak out, and let us know so we can serve you as best as possible. So that is my speech for supporting Black press, speaking up for the marketing for the Cincinnati Herald. And on top of that, knowing that what's happening in the world is affecting us in many different ways, and how even though we have a small part of covering it, we have an important role to play as we move forward in the country. Yep. What do you think, John?
Well, yeah, I basically agree with what you're saying, Andrea. The Black press is it's small but very vital, plays a very vital part in journalism, because there aren't many publications, that really, speak out for Black people in general. So that's why Black presses will always be an important voice because it's the voice of our community. So I will always advocate for the Black press, like forever.
Oh yeah, I think it's interesting that in terms of where we were, Black press wise, the state of the Black press and also the new segments of the media. Byron Allen is carving out that space now for the Black press, and what he has from the Griot and other places, and what we see on PBS and other spaces that are all reaching out and showing the diversity in what we experience, and everyone can see that. So I think we have an important role to play, and we'll continue to have an important role to play, and just figure out how to serve everybody in the community. That being said, sad note, Lance Reddick, who was known for The Wire, but really for his role in the John Wick series, is dead at 60. I'm have not really watched a lot of John Wick, so I don't know what character he played in that. Because isn't there a John Wick 4 coming out soon?
It is coming out this Friday, so that's why it was even more devastating. I said, "Wow, he John Wick 4 is just coming out." It's and he actually has a number of movies that are coming out, because he was a character actor. He played many. He's just one of those actors that, "Oh, I know that guy." I said, "Wow, he's really good." Because besides The Wire, he was in Bosch, he was in I'm trying to remember, he was in Fringe, and he was actually what was the movie I was just thinking of?
Resident Evil?
Yes, Resident Evil. Yeah. He was really good in Resident Evil, and unfortunately that got canceled. But I don't think the show was that good, but he was fantastic in it. It seems he's just one of those actors who just can elevate a show just by him being in it.
Wait a minute, he was in Oz?
Yeah, that's right. He was in Oz too.
Oz. Oh, that was fantastic.
Yeah, he was in so much stuff. He was a character. He was a working actor, character actor. He brought credibility, to the show. I know it's sad.
So sad. It's
but
sad.
You know what? It is. And he was also, for all the peeps who play video games and everything, he was in the Destiny series too. So, I've never played Destiny before. I'm not that. Well, I mean, I like video games, but I'm more into retro games. But like I said, I heard Destiny's a really popular video game series. So that's where all the video game peeps will know him from.
Oh, wow. Well, it's so I always hate it when someone who has the passion and the talent and passes away suddenly. It's so sad. It's just so sad. They said it was natural causes. So you just never know what's going to happen.
But I was gonna say also, like I said, he's a working actor, so he's going to be in a bunch of stuff that hasn't even come out yet. Like there's a remake of White Men Can't Jump. He's in that. There's a there's a John Wick spinoff called Ballerina. He's going to be in that. And then on the TV side too, he's like in a bunch of stuff. He's going to be in the new Percy and the Jacksons and the Olympians TV show that's coming out. So, he's going to be in a lot of stuff that hasn't come out yet. So, even, he's still going to amaze us with his performances, even, in
That's a
depth.
shame. That is a shame, but I'm so sorry to see him go, but he was such a good character actor, and it's hard to find good character actors
So,
that that leave a presence, and you just like, oh yeah, I know him, oh yeah, I know him. So
yeah,
I'm just sorry to hear him go.
yeah,
Another interesting development in the news space, it's two things, and they're sort of go hand in hand. First off, we've been bombarded with the pending arrest of Donald Trump, or he's going to be pending indicted, which he jumped off over the weekend on his social media site, where he claimed that he was going to be arrested on Tuesday. Well, Tuesday came and went. He didn't get arrested, but the grand jury is still meeting over his thing with his issue with Stormy Daniels. The DA is investigating that. The grand jury should be meeting next week, and it's going to be interesting the outcome of that. Plus, in Georgia, I know Republicans are like, he should be arrested. He should be, all this, because they're trying to keep their front runner for the White House out there. But at some point, the GOP needs to decide what's in their best interest. Is it Donald Trump, or is it somebody else? And that somebody else is not as good as is just as worse as Donald Trump. But anyway,
yeah,
but I think also what we need to watch, the side item that goes along with the Trump issue in the grand jury, is what's going on with Fox News and the Dominion lawsuit as well. There may be a decision coming down with that any day. I know that there's been a request for a summary judgment on most of what has come out on that lawsuit. Fox News wants it all dismissed because they believe they did nothing wrong, even though there's evidence that they were aware that what they were saying about Dominion was not true. And I think the judge is going to sort of rule half and half, where yes, Fox News did something wrong, but Dominion still has to prove it in court, on a case-by-case basis, whether or not they were affected by what they did wrong. And because no one is disputing what they said was wrong, it was not true. They've admitted it. They corrected it on the air. But what is interesting with the discussion that has come out regarding this lawsuit, which sort of got started by Donald Trump and everyone just ran with it, is whether or not the case will go to a jury, and if they side with Dominion, what the damages are and what the punitive damages will be. And that's the part Dominion has to prove, how heavily damaged were they. Now, what's interesting that came out today is the fact that Rupert Murdoch, they're fighting over whether or not Rupert Murdoch has to appear before the judge.
yeah,
And because Fox News is claiming he had nothing to do with it, but Rupert Murdoch in his deposition said, yeah, they lied. He said the anchors lied. They knew it wasn't true, but they went ahead and did it anyway. But he said, he put it at, it's all about the money. The higher the ratings they had, the more they could charge for ads.
mm,
And it's all about the ad rating and everything else. And at the end of the day, Dominion has to prove damages. But the fact that a news entity they're not willing to admit that they did something wrong, even though in a way they have admitted they did something wrong. They're not disputing the truth, but they're not admitting to the truth as well. And so how Fox News is handled will be uniquely interesting, how they handle Trump. And that's the reason why I brought up the one along with the other, because our democracy hangs in the balance not just from a political perspective, but from a freedom of news perspective, and how that's going to affect us going forward on who covers what and how it's covered.
Yeah.
Because if Fox News wins, then anyone can damage anybody and not have any consequences. And that's not a precedent you want set.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I said I bring up both together. So I think going forward, even though we're tired of all of this, I think we have to be vigilant and watch and take a approach of how's this going to affect me down the road. And I think that's where we stand as the Black press, watching all of this, because we're heavily affected by what anyone does. For every action, there's a reaction. And how that reaction is going to play on us is going to be interesting. So that's the reason. But we'll it's a wait and see now about the grand jury, which grand jury is going to come forward first, whether or not Donald Trump will be perped or not. I think he wants the show. He wants the chaos because he called for people to come out and protest, which is, again, another interesting thing because he claims he didn't cause January 6th, but he's calling for people to protest.
Oh, yeah.
But the good side of that is everyone who was involved in January 6th and support him all said, no, we're not going to do that because we don't want to go to jail. So they do recognize consequences for their actions, especially when it comes from anything with Donald Trump. So they're learning. People are learning how to handle that issue.
Finally.
But I mean, it's very slow how they're handling it. So I think Donald Trump believes that people will save him and he can go off and become president again and have his wonderful federally funded ATM machine again. And, I think people will recognize that's not going to happen. At the end of the day, either you want a country that's going to move forward and someone who can handle everything, or you want someone who's going to dumb it down and let the dictators of the world take over. Because did you see the story about Moscow and China meeting for 2 days?
I did not see that.
They met for 2 days and they have they have an agreement that they're going to move forward on some things together.
Interesting.
And, Chinese are out for Chinese.
Yeah.
And Moscow's out for Moscow, but they don't want the West to win.
Yeah.
So that is an interesting dynamic that you have to be careful about, because remember, at the end of the day, China holds most of our debt. They do. And one of these days they may call it due.
Yeah.
So we need to be careful on how we handle and watch that relationship and what that means. So there's that. And then the final most exciting thing that's happening, because I know I'll be watching, the Sweet 16 takes off tomorrow.
Yep, sure does.
And March Madness is in its final few days. And there have been some surprises. I knew my bracket was ruined after the first few games. I was like, darn.
I know a lot of people's brackets are messed up.
Well, I was lucky because the first round, I guessed somewhat right. My bracket really didn't get broken until the second and third round.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, no. But I just said the second round really broke my bracket. And the Sweet 16 that I thought we were going to have is not what I expected. And I know we had an earlier discussion about this. And, it's interesting that the majority of those who are in the Sweet 16 have never won an NCAA tournament, which I think is wonderful.
It's definitely interesting.
It's interesting that with the changes behind the scenes with the ACC and the NIT and, who's playing what and doing what, and the Pac-12, how those big names that were known for NCAA are out. Duke, Marquette, Purdue, Arizona, they're not there. But I mean, UCLA is still in it, but Gonzaga is in it. Xavier is in it, which is a surprise.
Go
In the last
Musketeers!
and I mean, really, truly, the Musketeers out of the whole region that got into the tournament, they're the only ones that are surviving. Hopefully, they'll survive tomorrow.
That would be
Um,
nice.
it's going to be interesting when they play that game because I think they're playing. Are they? They're playing.
Texas Longhorns.
See, it's Texas.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? I gotta have faith.
Well, I mean, really, truly, Texas, the state of Texas had a number of schools in the first round and the second round of the bracket. And Texas is a sports powerhouse state for a reason. They live in, well, Ohio, well, Cincinnati does too, but they live and breathe sports to a level that I have never witnessed before. I mean, when I lived there in Texas for a year, I was like, oh my God. It is, I remember I had an editor who was telling me a football story, and he was covering this football game and it was sleeting and raining. I was like, well, did you get inside? He was like, it was football. It had to be covered. I said, yeah, but there was ice on the steps. It was football. It had to be covered. And I was like, okay, it has to be covered. All right. So that level of football, but of sports, even basketball, is to that level of, oh my God, it's basketball. So, Texas they grow them passionate for the game in Texas. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it
I'm
should definitely be exciting though.
Yes, it should be exciting. Xavier is playing tomorrow night on CBS at 9:45 p.m. So it's going to be a late game. So tomorrow night. So for those of you watching Xavier, it's going to be 9:45 on CBS. That being said, it's going to be interesting if they make it to the next round.
Yeah, because I don't think they've made it to. I know I can't remember the last time they've made it to. If they win, they'll be in the Elite Eight, and I can't remember the last time they've been to Elite Eight. It's been a while.
It's been a while, but I mean, the fact that the last time they were in the NCAA tournament was with Coach Miller before,
Right.
and they haven't made it since. And then now Coach Miller is back. They're back in the NCAA, which is very interesting. But anyway, but I think also there's some other interesting games to watch in the Sweet 16 makeup. Alabama's in. They're playing San Diego tomorrow
Oh
evening.
yeah.
Princeton is in,
Yeah.
which is amazing to
I
me.
know, right?
Princeton's in playing Crichton, which is also another interesting because normally Crichton's good for 2-3 rounds, and then and Princeton's good for 1 or 2 rounds. This is amazing that they both made it to the Sweet 16. I would just say Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic is in playing Tennessee. Oh my God.
I
You
know. It's
know,
it's interesting. It really is.
it's very interesting. Houston is in. They're playing Miami, which that's interesting.
Yeah.
Miami is always good for a good game. Gonzaga, oh yes, Gonzaga. They are playing in the West region. They're playing against UCLA. Now that's going to be interesting because Gonzaga is good. They usually make it to the Sweet 16. They usually make it to the Sweet 8. So
Right.
does UCLA. So it's going to be interesting. That battle in particular is going to be very, very good. Arkansas versus Connecticut, it's up in the air.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting games
Yeah.
that are going to happen tomorrow and Friday. So I'm just gonna play it by ear and just and get my popcorn and get my little drink and be like, okay, Musketeers, go forward. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
But let's not forget UC is playing in the NIT. So and they are playing actually tonight.
Are
So
they?
so let's go for UC though. They might
Well, they
they could win,
they could win the NIT, which is
Yeah.
also an accomplishment as
Yeah,
well.
which is still respectable.
It is. I mean, I'm surprised that I'm sorry that NKU did not make it past the first round.
Yeah.
But you know what? That just means that they have an effort, excuse me, to make it next year and going forward. So their game has been stepped up.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to see what they can do next year for the season. And then Kentucky got out.
Yeah,
They got
that
booted out.
was a shocker, wasn't it?
They're always good to at least go down to the Sweet Four. I
Yeah, I
mean,
know.
I'm like,
Yeah,
man,
that was interesting.
I was like, oh, that's not good. But you know, but everyone who's a name or has that legacy of what they can do on the court, I think they've all been going through a transition season or two, and they need to find that footing again and make it. And I think they will. I'm just sorry to see that they're not in it this year, but you know what? That's something to look forward to next year. But
Yep,
so
exactly.
that is the March Madness, and that is the chocolate news for today.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. And that's it for today's show. And I want to thank Andrea again for delivering all the chocolate news. Always appreciate it.
Thank you. And you know, and whether or not we will be keeping everything up to date, look for our newsletter. If you don't receive it, check out our website and sign up for it. And if we don't connect you through the podcast, we'll connect you through the newsletter. So just keep joining us and listening.
And once again, this week's podcast is sponsored by the Ohio Lottery. Keep it fun, Ohio. Play responsibly. And you can find more information about today's topics and past podcast episodes at www.thecincinnatiherald.com, the Sesh newsletter, or on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. Our podcast is on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Amazon, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. In addition, the Cincinnati Herald is now looking for news distribution and delivery agents, so please contact our publisher Walter White at 513-680-7076 for more information. I'm John Alexander Reese,
And I'm Andria Carter.
and have a good day.